Well, you know, tonight is very important, particularly for a small group of people, but I think you're going to all find this very interesting. We're turning our attention to a haunting mystery that has gripped the small town of Bonham, Texas for over 2 decades. We're talking about the unsolved murder of 28-year-old Jennifer Harris. Now, on Mother's Day, May 12, 2002, Jennifer vanished without a trace. 6 days later, a fisherman discovered her lifeless body floating in the Red River. Her death was ruled a homicide, but to this day, her killer remains at large. Now tonight, we're going to revisit the details of Jennifer's disappearance, but before we do that, I want to add a dear friend and a legend in the world of true crime. She's been a friend for really almost 20 years. Former prosecutor, a tireless advocate for victims' rights, and the host of the gripping Crime Stories with Nancy Grace, which airs right here on Merit TV. Take a look.
Talk about a wolf in sheep's clothing. I have just come out of the courthouse here at Delphi, and I've got to tell you, it's nothing like you would ever imagine. All she's talking about is me. She lied to police. She lied in court. She got 25, which I think is like, you know, going to Kmart and getting a 2-for-1 special. Nancy Grace signing off. I'll see you tomorrow night, 6 to 9 o'clock sharp Eastern, and until then, good night, friend.
Please welcome the one and only Nancy Grace. It's good to have you here. I'm sorry for the occasion, though. We've got a bad one here, right?
Thank you for inviting me. It has been, in May, 23 years since Jennifer was murdered. I believe she was pregnant at the time, and this brings to the forefront that the #1 cause of death amongst pregnant women, it's not high blood pressure, it's not a heart attack, it's homicide. And I think back to when I was pregnant with the twins. I could barely walk at the end. I was in a wheelchair on the way to my show every night, but no one knew that. Can you imagine? The #1 cause of death amongst pregnant women is homicide. Jennifer was pregnant. She was found naked, face down, in the Red River. And by God, I want justice.
It's astounding that you're going to hear the facts of this case today, and Nancy and I both are huge advocates of law enforcement. We want justice for the bad guys. We want them brought to justice. We support law enforcement in their quest to do that. Sometimes you get in these rural counties and they don't have a lot to choose from. They don't have big training budgets. They don't have technology. And they work with what they have. And sometimes you've just got somebody that kind of just takes the job and they drive around in a police car, but they don't have a lot of training. They don't have a lot of expertise.
You're right. And it's not just rural areas, but Dr. Phil, you're right, especially in rural areas, there's no money. This is population 10,000 people now. Yeah. There's population 10,000 people in Bonham, Texas. And I'm not sure what the population was then, but much less, obviously. There's no money for training. They may not have ever heard of deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA, much less how to test it, how to gather it, how to preserve a scene. It's so easy to Monday morning quarterback, ain't it?
Yeah, it is. And in this case, we've got a family that has never given up. They've never stopped seeking justice for this precious family member, and they're continuing. And this is a big step here for this to go nationwide, put heat on this case, keep it in the spotlight. They've talked to Nancy. They're going to talk to us together tonight. I want to introduce Jennifer's sister, Alyssa. She says that her goal is to shed new light on a cold case in hopes that someone somewhere holds the key to unlocking the truth. And let me tell you, so many of these things really get broken open because somebody knows something they don't know they know. and they'll see something, they'll see a story unfold like this and go, you know what? I do remember something, or I saw something, or you remember in the Gabby Petito case, people started looking at their phones and they said they caught the corner of a van in the just in the
Oh, you're
edge.
so right, Dr. Phil. There was an online sleuth, and I remember her name. Her handle was Red, White, and Bethune instead of Red, White, and Blue. And she had been watching the coverage,
Yeah.
I think including yours,
Yeah.
and saw Gabby's Ford Transit that she so lovingly redid to travel the country in it. And out there in the middle of nowhere in dispersed camping, in other words, no hookups, no commodes, no showers, no lights, in dispersed camping, they see a Ford Transit, and she says, that's Gabby Petito's Ford Transit, calls it in. That's how they found Gabby's body.
So people that don't know what they know can sometimes be the piece of the puzzle. Let's take a look at this.
My name's Alyssa Wernick. Jennifer was my big sister. We grew up in Bonham, Texas. It's a small town northeast of Dallas, the kind of place that you could leave your doors unlocked. Everyone knew everyone. Jennifer was very vivacious. She was very feisty. She was very popular. Jennifer grew up with Rob Holman. They were kind of boyfriend and girlfriend when she was in the 8th grade and he was in the 7th. And they continued to be an item in high school. It was kind of like peanut butter and jelly. It was Jennifer and Rob. The wedding was big.
I, Jennifer, thank you, Rob.
Huge cake, huge dress, the whole 9 yards. It was around the time when she was renovating the house that they lived in Louisville that James was there. James Hamilton is a friend / partner in business, and what I learned was a romantic interest of Jennifer's. It was sort of apparent that they were spending a lot of time together, and that's when Rob was getting frustrated. So I believe she said, I want a divorce. She just moved back to Bonham. I first found out she was missing the day after Mother's Day, because on Mother's Day, I had tried to call her at my grandmother's. 6 days later, I received a call that a fisherman had found a body. And my dad, he drove out to the Red River, to the bridge. And I got in the car too, and I remember seeing my other family members, and the looks on their faces were just, I knew at that point it was her.
Well, thank you for being here. And I know that time has passed, but that people say time heals all wounds. Time heals nothing, right? I mean, this is still the same.
Right.
And I know it's difficult to talk about it, but you're not going to let this go. Fair?
Or I can't.
What were the events leading up to Jennifer's murder? You remember it very clearly, what was going on at the time and what happened the day that she disappeared.
Well, she had moved back to Bonham after her massage and wellness center failed to thrive. And I think she was ready for a new start. I think she was looking into job interviews, moving to Colorado or a surrounding state like that. She loved the outdoors, so she wanted to be in a state that was really beautiful. And she found out she was pregnant. And I think that's when she went into this mode of relationship building with Rob and going back to him and trying to make things work again so that they could take the next step and start this family.
And what did you think of that at the time? Did that feel right to you, feel wrong to you? I mean, what was your thinking?
Well, I didn't know she was pregnant. until she was missing. It was my understanding, though, she had contemplated getting back together with him, and I felt like it was a step in the wrong direction. I thought that she missed having someone stable in her life, but it wasn't him necessarily, it was just someone. So I kind of encouraged her to seek working on herself first, and then another relationship would come in the future.
Is there anything you wish you had said to her then, as you sit here now, that you didn't say?
Yeah, I was living in Austin at the time. I should have said, move here with me, you know, come live with me for a while. I know you're in a hard spot. We'll figure this out together.
We're going to talk about how they found out about it, and there are things that bother both of us about how this was handled. We're going to talk about that when we come back. A private investigator thinks he knows who was involved in Jennifer's murder. We're going to hear from him, and Nancy can tell us in very rapid-fire fashion what went wrong with this investigation. We don't have enough time to talk about everything that went wrong, but you can highlight for us the main things. We'll be right back. What's missing in the investigation? There's a missing laptop, right?
I think he might have had something to do with the disappearance of the laptop.
That's pretty bold. Why would you say that?
$36 trillion. That is the U.S. debt, and it gets deeper and deeper by the day. Our debt has never been higher, nor have the stakes. The government is looking to slash the federal budget by $2 trillion, and no one knows what that will mean for your job, savings, and future. I've seen a lot in my time, and there's one thing I know for sure. You need to prepare before it's too late. I trust Preserve Gold to help protect my wealth, and I strongly urge you to do the same. They are the only precious metals firm I trust and recommend to my family, friends, and audience, and they have a special offer just for you. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. With gold prices recently breaking records and analysts predicting this trend to continue throughout 2025, you cannot afford to wait. As a bonus, you can get up to $15,000 with a qualified purchase from Preserve Gold. So don't wait. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 today.
The sheriff's department did nothing to help us with this case. It was just mishandled from the very beginning. From when her Jeep was found, they didn't secure the area, do the right procedures or anything like that. They just towed the Jeep, got into the Jeep, started touching everything. They just completely botched every aspect of it.
We went to the location of Jennifer's disappearance with private investigator and former Fannin County Sheriff's Lieutenant Daryl Parker. He shows us what he thinks happened that tragic night.
My name is Daryl Parker. I'm a former lieutenant with the Fannin County Sheriff's Office and now a private investigator. This is the starting point of the investigation because this is the last place that Jennifer was at before she disappeared. Jennifer came over here about 6:30 p.m. Christy Parr said it was almost 8 when Jennifer said, "Oh, I'm meeting somebody, I have to go." So we're leaving Christy Parr's house in the same direction that Jennifer would have left and headed towards this intersection with Highway 273, which is where Rob Holman said that he saw her approach the intersection. Rob Holman's statement to the police during the interview was that as they approached the intersection together, he saw her turn right, and he wanted to avoid any drama, so he turned left.
I went to go buy some beer. Saw Jennifer when she went through the four-way stop there in 98, 78. I went north. I didn't know if she'd seen me or not.
Well, it didn't make sense because Fannin County is a dry county. She arrived here and parked her Jeep at about 8:11 p.m. When she got here, it was apparent that she was meeting someone that she knew. There was no signs of force. There was no blood or anything found at the scene. Jennifer gets into the vehicle of her killer. And from here, they go north. We really don't know what happened after that. Jennifer was missing for 6 days before they found her body. Jennifer's right eye was really swollen. I think she was attacked. I think she was with blunt force trauma and possibly strangled. The ex-boyfriend naturally would be a suspect, but in this case, he had an alibi. He was over an hour away. There were 2 witnesses.
I was at McDonald's till 18 p.m.
We really only have 3 suspects. We have Rob Holman, we have James Hamilton, and we have an unknown stranger. None of the elements of this case fit the random psychopath. That leaves these 2 suspects. This one has an alibi. The only legitimate suspect left is Rob Holman.
Well, thank you so much for being here and for what you're doing on this case. I know you've really put some time and effort and energy into this since you left the force and working with the family. What's missing in the investigation?
Not sure where to start. I think the first missed piece was probably where they found the Jeep. The Bonham Police Department didn't realize that she was missing at the time. They thought it was just an abandoned vehicle, so they towed the vehicle away. It would have been better if they had known and they had frozen the scene so they could process it.
There's a missing laptop, right?
There's a missing laptop. Jennifer's laptop was taken as evidence. They were supposed to download the laptop and see what sort of things were on there. Had she been communicating with someone, that sort of thing. Well, the laptop disappeared. It's nowhere in the evidence chain.
Now, Nancy, her father asked for the laptop. They told him no, and then it disappeared. What do you make of that?
My big concern is that apparently Jennifer kept a blog of her life, like a diary. What a treasure trove of information now. Let's face it, I've had to retry a murder case that was originally tried when I was in law school, and then I got to the DA's office and had to put it back together. There was one x-ray and a hat that said, "Kiss my bass." That was all my evidence. I had to start from 0. That was a huge property room. How big could the property evidence room be in this jurisdiction? So what happened to it? It didn't get lost. So who took it? That's my question.
How do you answer that question? In a small town like this, the evidence room has to be fairly simple.
A closet.
What is the chain of custody on something like that?
Well, you're right. This was a small town, and I came to the sheriff's office about 7 years after Jennifer's death.
Right.
So I sort of walked into this, and the evidence room consisted of a room, but it also consisted of a couple of Connex boxes out in the parking lot. It was not the best situation. And then the investigator that was working on this from the Fannin County Sheriff's Office, I think he might have had something to do with the disappearance of the laptop.
That's pretty bold. Why would you say that?
Because
I'm not taking his side. I'm just curious.
Sure. After he left the Fannin County Sheriff's Office, well, let me back up. First of all, he asked the family if he could keep the laptop.
Okay, enough said.
Yeah, he actually also asked if he could take over her Jeep payments because she didn't have her Jeep anymore and he liked it.
Did he?
No.
He didn't take over the payments and
No.
keep her Jeep? But he asked if he could take the laptop?
Yes.
And do what? Use
He
it as
thought it
his
was
own?
nice.
Oh, my God.
There's something else missing, just off the top of my head. The keys. Remember that set of car keys were found not too far from that cottage and where her body was
Let's
found?
zip through this right quick. Small wooden
yes.
shed was burned. No clothing was found. Was it burned in the shed? Is that what happened to it? I don't know. There's no purse found. The Jeep never was entered into evidence. Even after the fact, when they did discover that it was hers, they didn't enter it into evidence then?
They did some precursory checks. They went and searched the Jeep. They found a water bottle. They dusted the water bottle for fingerprints.
They found 2 water bottles.
2 water bottles, yeah.
Did they process them both?
I believe they did. I don't know the results of it. There was no report in the file when I got there.
I'm sorry, and I'm not challenging you on this.
Sure.
You weren't there at the time. You showed up 7 years later. How do you dust something for prints, process it, and there be no report? What happened to report? Did it go with the laptop?
And the
don't
car
know.
keys?
Yeah, I can't answer that.
You all just must be pulling your hair out.